Welcome to the deep dive. We've carved out some time today for what feels like a true cultural landmark.
It really does.
Tizre's newly announced and officially final studio album. It's called Many Roads to Leave By, but Few Come Back Again.
And it's scheduled for release on January 24th, 2026. So, we have some time to prepare.
I think we'll need it. This feels like more than just a musical event.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, given this band's history of defining and then almost instantly dissolving genres, this closing statement is, from everything we're seeing, one of their most conceptually ambitious projects yet.
Absolutely. We have a really heavy stack of source material today, pre-release interviews, some production notes, artist statements.
A lot to get through.
Yeah, and our mission is to unpack the emotional, the sonic, and the technical shifts that have defined this specific ending. We want to give you, the listener, a shortcut to understanding why this album is really poised to redefine their entire legacy.
A huge claim, but I think it's true.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the deeply philosophical foundation of this release.
Well, what's fascinating here is how Tizre immediately grounds this album in some pretty profound emotional territory.
They're not just writing songs.
No, not at all. They are mapping a mental state. The whole thing is framed as a deeply conceptual journey through memory, mortality, and those quiet, reflective turning points that often just go unacknowledged in daily life.
And they introduce this very powerful academic term right away, the liminal space. But they've managed to take that idea and make it deeply, deeply personal.
Precisely. The concept of liminality for Tizre is that emotional suspension that exists specifically between states.
That in-between feeling.
Exactly. So between realizing a major loss and actually accepting a new reality, or even between life and the finality of death. It's like the waiting room of the soul.
The waiting room of the soul, I like that.
It focuses on the potential for reinvention that exists only when you are completely, totally stationary.
And it addresses that really haunting human question, which they state explicitly in the notes. What if you were stalled?
Right.
What happens if you never move forward from one definitive state? That feeling of being suspended, just watching the world change around you.
And to give this, ethereal concept some real physical weight, they provide us with a single iconic visual metaphor.
A bus stop.
A bus stop at night, featuring the lone figure of a woman. And this bus stop, it isn't a destination. It is the symbolic in-between place.
What's so striking about that image is its universal stillness, isn't it? Everyone has waited. Everyone knows that feeling of quiet contemplation while you're waiting for something that may or may not even arrive.
Exactly. And the stillness of waiting at that stop, it forces reflection on all the roads you've taken, all the paths you've walked, and maybe more importantly, those you wish you could return to, but you just can't.
So the emotional narrative they're building is this blend.
It's a blend of profound grief, deep nostalgia, and yet, surprisingly, quiet transformation. It's an album designed to feel like that midnight reflection time.
That conceptual weight is heavy, and it feels like it demanded a complete sonic overhaul, which, brings us to the first major surprise in the sources.
A big one.
I am genuinely intrigued by this specific decision trading in their signature energetic pop rock for such deep electronic textures. What does that tell us about their intent here?
It tells us they prioritized atmosphere over energy for this closing statement. And for fans accustomed to their anthemic electro-pop rock moments, this is a seismic shift.
A huge one.
The sources confirm this is Tizre's most electronically focused record to date. They're leaving behind that driving pace for something far more submerged.
So let's break down that sound change for the listener. They are diving headfirst into down-tempo pulses. We are talking trip-hop, atmospheric lounge.
And cinematic pop, yeah. These are genres built on mood, right? Not kinetic energy.
Right. And for listeners who might not be super familiar, can you maybe define trip-hop in this context?
Sure. I mean, think of the sound of smoky late-night jazz drums. They're often sampled. They're slow, heavy break beats. And they're mixed with these slow, dominant bass lines and atmospheric strings or synths.
So it's designed purely for mood.
Purely for mood, not for dancing. And then that lounge element, that adds a sense of, expensive, polished ease to it all.
But doesn't that risk sounding, too sedate or even boring for a definitive final statement? I mean, energy has always been their defining characteristic.
And that's the central challenge they embrace. That's the tightrope they're walking.
Okay.
According to the Bection notes, the music is meant to be floating and haunting, yes, but it absolutely retains the melodic sensibility and the emotional structure of their past work.
So they stripped away the raw power, but not the feeling.
Exactly. They retain the emotional weight. The stillness of the music serves the liminal concept. It's supposed to sound like that quiet, reflective moment when you realize you are alone at the bus stop.
It sounds like they needed absolute control over every single sonic molecule to pull that off.
Total control.
Which brings us to the collaborative architecture. For an album defined by such a big genre shift, the meticulous construction of that new sound required some serious firepower.
It truly did. And this section of the sources is fascinating because it shows how they built that new atmosphere. We can pretty much group the contributors into two main categories.
Okay, what are they?
The architects of the soundscape, and then the emotional anchors.
Let's start with the architects.
Okay, so we have the return of producer Detra Deden, and Deden's role here was all about creating a sense of place.
Immersive.
Completely. His focus was on providing that clean, immersive production with obsessive attention to meticulous synth layering and spatial arrangement, specifically on the most emotionally impactful tracks. The goal was to make the atmosphere itself feel tactile.
And crucially, this time he's co-producing heavily with Helena Gardner.
Yes.
And Gardner feels like the emotional anchor here, lending her unmistakable vocal tone and contributing heavily to all the vocal arrangements and the production.
Her performances are absolutely key to bridging that gap between the electronic textures and the human feeling.
Right.
The notes describe her voice as ethereal yet weighty, grounded in emotional realism. That ability to be floating and grounded at the same time is what sells the whole liminal idea. It makes the bus stop feel real, not just like a metaphor.
Now for the other voices, Molly G and Clara Rowe, they seem to serve really distinct atmospheric purposes, fitting this new genre structure perfectly.
They do. Molly G, the UK-born vocalist, she is essential for the trip-hop elements.
So she brings the warmth.
She provides that characteristic warmth and a necessary emotional clarity to the more vulnerable, down-tempo tracks. Her voice prevents the mood from becoming too cold or just strictly ambient.
Whereas Clara Rowe, who has a background in vocal trance and lounge, contributes arrangement ideas that lift and elevate the moodier moments.
And when you hear vocal trance elements, you should think of voices being used less as a lyrical tool and more like shimmering, sustained instruments that build atmosphere in the high end.
It's all about texture.
All about texture. And rounding out that vocal layering is Chiara Amatruda. Her vocals, already haunting on previous releases, are described as being even more expansive and cinematic this time around.
And they're integrated differently.
Seamlessly integrated directly into the production fabric. It sounds like her voice is no longer standing in the environment. It's part of the environment, blurring that line between human expression and sonic texture.
It sounds like the human voices themselves are almost being treated as sound objects, just inhabiting the space.
That's a great way to put it.
But even with this heavy electronic focus, you can't really have an album called Many Roads to Leave By without acknowledging the rock history they're leaving behind.
And that's where the instrumental core comes in. And it's maybe the most poetic detail in all the sources. The foundation balances that electronic polish with a human touch that is literally about memory.
I love this description of Silverio Simeoni on guitar. His playing is described as expressive, minimalist, delivering textures that sound like ghostly echoes of rock memory.
It's such a powerful idea.
It really is.
The guitarist is performing the memory of their old genre. It's not loud rock music, it's the trace elements, the lingering reverberations of their past identity.
And supplementing that is Chris Helkow, focusing purely on ambient guitar.
Right. Providing these subtle melodic shifts and critical emotional tension without ever taking the spotlight.
And you need a solid rhythmic foundation to hold up a world of floating memories, so Nick Gallagher on bass.
He provides that necessary warmth and gravity to the bottom end, ensuring that even in the most ambient, weightless tracks, there's still a sense of grounding and a deliberate pulse.
And Minnie Flackeridge completes that rhythm section on drums.
Yes, and the sources emphasize that her live drums are woven so tightly to lock seamlessly with the electronic percussion. This isn't just a layer on top.
It's a hybrid.
It's a purposeful, rhythmic hybrid, a human performance that is carefully calibrated to electronic precision. The entire instrumental setup just screams intentionality in defining their final sound.
So if the sound of stillness requires this kind of meticulous layering on the performance side, then the technical execution must be absolutely flawless.
Has to be.
Which brings us to their choice of mastering technology. Let's shift gears now to the technical element that truly elevates this entire experience. the decision to master the album using Dolby Atmos spatial audio.
And this choice isn't just a footnote. It is integral to the whole concept.
Absolutely.
If you are creating an intensely immersive and atmospheric journey that explores a three-dimensional concept like liminal space, well, you need audio technology that can realize that third dimension.
We've moved so far beyond the traditional stereo left-right plane. For listeners who hear spatial audio and just think it's a bigger, louder sound, tell us what Atmos mastering actually entails for the artistic result Tizre is going for.
Okay, so the key is movement and location. Traditional stereo mixes use static channels, left, right, center.
The
basics. Atmos involves mixing and mastering in a true 3D spatial field, adding height and depth. And crucially, it uses objects rather than only static channels.
Okay, explain the object concept in relation to the music. What does that actually mean?
It means a specific sound, say, a shimmering synth layer, or a single strike of Minnie Flackridge's hi-hat, can be treated as a distinct object that can be placed and moved precisely within that 3D field.
So above you, behind you.
Above you, behind you, in the corner, or even passing from the front to the back.
That lends itself perfectly to creating that ghostly, echoing, in-between feel they're striving for. You could have Chiara Amatruda's voice, that expansive cinematic sound, move dynamically through the space.
Yes.
Representing the sensation of a memory passing or a spectral figure at that bus stop.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the object placement allows the sound designer to treat the atmosphere itself as a character in the story.
It's not just a beautiful reverb.
No, it's a deliberate placement that contributes to the emotional narrative. The sense of isolation at the bus stop is amplified when sound objects are placed far away, or when they just hover right above your head.
And the practical benefit for you, the listener, is the adaptability. An Atmos mix delivers a version that intelligently adapts to multiple playback systems.
Which is so important.
The source notes make it clear they didn't want to penalize fans who don't have a high-end setup.
That's vital. The sources specifically reassure us that a properly mastered Atmos mix is rendered down intelligently to stereo when needed. So you aren't getting a compromised flat product if you only listen on standard headphones.
You're just getting the best possible version for your setup.
You're just getting the best possible quality mix across all formats. The decision reflects their commitment to making this final atmosphere accessible regardless of your equipment.
That attention to detail is truly the sign of a definitive closing chapter. And speaking of closing chapters, we have to address the finality here. The album is officially being called their final studio album.
It is the formal farewell. And based on the whole concept, the journey through memory and mortality, it certainly feels appropriate for an ending. The whole album is designed to be reflective, immersive, and emotionally honest, fitting the tone of a goodbye. But the sources include that classic Tizreism.
The caveat, endings are rarely the end.
Right. It implies that while this chapter of studio recording, this long, long road, is officially closing, the collective might continue in other, less formal forms. It's a subtle way of defining the terms of the pause.
So no matter what comes next, this album is firmly framed as an invitation.
An invitation to stop, look back, and remember the journey they've taken over the years, just like the figure at the bus stop.
And as a beautiful little footnote to this farewell, the sources mention the inclusion of exclusive remixes, but they're not just, throwaway.
No, they're not bonus tracks.
They are described as serving as mirrors to the main record.
Which is such a wonderful metaphor.
Yeah.
They offer alternate moods, expanded textures, and they provide new emotional entry points.
So if the main album is the quiet reflection in the moonlight,
the remix is the memory seen through a different filter. Maybe harsher, maybe warmer. It allows you to explore that liminal space from multiple viewpoints.
So we've covered the three interlocking pillars that really define Tizre's final statement. The conceptual framework of liminal space and the quiet farewell, the genre shift to this atmospheric trip-hop and ambient sound.
And the high-fidelity technical realization through spatial audio, through Dolby Atmos.
Right.
I mean, this deep dive has shown us how Tizre used a highly specific, deeply personal concept, that lonely bus stop at night, and cutting-edge audio technology to define an ending with maximum emotional impact.
Which raises an important question for you to mull over as you await the release.
When an artist formally closes a chapter, how much does the technical execution of that final work define the lasting legacy of their entire catalog?
It's a great question.
Does the ambition of the Dolby Atmos mastering not just elevate this record, but does it retroactively enhance the perception of all their previous work because of the sheer sonic scope of their final statement? Something to think about.
It certainly makes this final statement unforgettable. Thank you for sharing your sources and your time with us today, and we look forward to hearing what you uncover next.